Well, as our title says, community is vital. Community is really what makes the difference. It's what allows us to thrive as human beings. So I would love to hear first from you, Luis, if you could share, with your experience, why does community matter?
That's a big question. Who belongs to a community here? Everybody? How do you feel about your community? Is it good for you or so-so or so-so is good? It's interesting because not all communities are healthy communities for us. And actually it's very interesting because from a chemistry point of view, belonging creates oxytocin. So it means that when we are with people, and this is something that we study a lot as part of the World Happiness Foundation, we are focused on happiness and well-being from science, but as well from practice. So when we talk to Loretta Bronin, who is one of the top experts on the chemistry of the brain, belonging to a community creates oxytocin. So that gives us the sense of security. And that's why it's very difficult to get out from communities sometimes because we miss that chemistry. So this is interesting because we are going to be talking about communities from a positive and enhancing point of view, but it's true as well that not all communities allow us to thrive. And today in the world, we are going through eco-anxiety. We all are suffering from collective trauma. COVID has really created the same issues for all of us. What that means is that through science, we know that collective trauma has to be dealt with collective healing. So the way I want to introduce the power of community is through healing. Actually, communities heal. Communities help us to thrive because we feel supported. Having a psychological security is very important because as we know as well, when we feel pain, it doesn't matter if it's physical or psychological pain, we feel it in the same place. So feeling social pain is as hard as feeling physical pain. That's why communities are so relevant because they support us, they help us belong, they create the energy for us to thrive, they become advocates of what we do. And if we are with like-minded people, we become stronger. We know from the largest research in history at Harvard University is that the first reason why people are happier is because they have at least one meaningful connection in life. It's about relationships. And community allows us to build those relationships. So look at so many benefits, from healing to thriving, supporting, belonging. This is very, very powerful. So I invite you, and let's see what we learn from all our communities, to build communities that allow us to thrive. And this is what we are trying to do as well at the World Happiness Foundation.
Absolutely. And I think Marcelo, if you could share with us a little bit some of these points that Luis mentioned. How did the community that you created, perhaps tell them a little bit about what it is and how you came to be in that space and felt supported by that space and the importance it's played in your life and how you're now moving that forward into other countries?
Sure, thank you. I was traveling I was born in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and growing up in a big city that I didn't like, but I didn't know any different. As soon as I had the chance, I left the city and I went and traveled around the world for 3.5 years. And I saw what a beautiful world we have and how much we are destroying it. And started to look for solutions, and I started building in an island this beautiful paradise in Bocas del Toro, in the border between Costa Rica and Panama. I was living there, and I fell in love with this woman that later became my wife, but we were living very happily there in our little paradise until we decided we wanted to have kids. And we said, we cannot have kids just being around each other all day, every day. And that is when it became clear to us that we needed community around. And we traveled, we decided we wanted to get married, and we traveled around the world. And when we visit many places and many communities and see what works, what didn't work, and why, we couldn't find anywhere that we said, okay, this is the community we wanted. So we came back to Costa Rica. That's been my home for the last 25 years. And I started this community about 13, 14 years ago that is called La Ecovia. And it was a land that was destroyed by cows. And we started restoring, regenerating the soil, and started bringing back nature and inviting people to come and live in contact with nature, buying their lot and being our neighbors. And that attracted 47 families from 29 different countries, all ages, all backgrounds. And we started living together without even know what community meant. And we started discovering in this thing and really didn't know what life was guiding us in that direction. But as soon as we finished our house, my wife, with 32 years old, she got diagnosed with breast cancer. And having community around in difficult moments of life is life-changing. And as long as we live, we all gonna go through difficult times. A divorce, economical problems, death, illness, whatever it is. But having community is what keeps you going, what keeps you sane. And many times, as men in this society, we don't have a space where we can share how we feel, what's going on inside, truly. Like, women are more allowed to be able to cry with their friends, yell, do things that we are not. And having these circles that we have in our community every week, the men, we gather around the fire, and we have this space that is sacred and is confidential, and we can share what's going on and how it is. So it's so beneficial to have community, and you don't have to move to the jungle in Costa Rica to have that. Each of you can create your own community in whatever environment you are. But you can dream however you want to live. And I can talk for hours about the benefits of community and in a resilient community and a regenerative community. But the most important thing is, how can we have a supporting group going through life? Yeah. And it's highly recommended.
And I think the one word that you're putting in there is this creation of trust, right? You create a circle of trust where you can grow together, where you can share, where you can improve. And I think, bringing this to a business world, working with CEOs, executives from all over the world, we're going to hear from you, David. I mean, that's a challenge, right? All these wonderful business people around the world, and we saw it in COVID. Suddenly we had to go virtual. So, we have here a very beautiful landscape, a physical space where we're creating community. Can you share a little bit how with the Virtual Advisory Board, you've created this trust, you've created this community that supports business people around the world?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much for being here with all of you. And yes, the Virtual Advisory Board is a concept and a project where I run as a CEO and co-founder. And we started this literally in 2020. It was March 2020 when I received a call from a headhunter that today is my partner. And it changed literally my life. And I understood with him the needs that we were having. First of all, we know that all those CEOs, entrepreneurs, angel investors, experts, like many of us, of course, they are super busy people, but also they feel very lonely. So with the COVID, we just confirmed that they were really needing to chat with other peers. So what we discovered was it's not necessarily for you to be in person, and of course it's super nice, and it still is super relevant for you to meet in person, even in the jungle or whatever. But you need to really to create communities. And what we decided was hey, if the COVID is there, but the need of supporting an advisory board or board of directors, it needs and it can happen virtually. So we created this community really with the purpose of sharing stories. And I think this is the powerful of VAB. VAB, it's not about placing executives on board placements. It's something that it's a consequence, it's organically. But what is really cool is that since that date until now, we created all virtually. Right now, like we are doing, and today, like in this event, we receive people from Israel, from Barcelona. They are part of the VAB community. Janma is part of the VAB community. I have been chatting with Janma perhaps for the last 18 months, but I never met in person. And many of them, they have been like for a couple of years. So we created this community with over almost like 700 members. And it's all about like the powerful of connecting and creating networking. So it's all about sharing stories.
So 700 members in what, 2 years?
In 3 years and a half.
Wow, yeah, it's amazing. And so, powering, and it's taking advantage of both technology and physical spaces to really grow communities virtually, physically, connect them with each other. And I think, Mati, this brings us to you. We just visited a few minutes ago, we were up at El Cubo, which is a co-creation space.
You should talk about that later.
A co-creation space.
We're going to have some time for that.
That brings together, entrepreneurs, professionals from all over to create together something better. And we were talking about how wonderful it is, the work you're doing in Miami. Could you share with us what happened with Miami and Manatech and how you are doing a physical and a virtual space to create better businesses, better communities, more investment, and more jobs for Latin America?
Sure. So thanks again, everyone. And so we started this community around founders, governments, non-governments, corporates, long time ago, a couple of years ago, I'll say. But then we realized virtuality is very important, and we were discussing this yesterday, but physical space is also important, right? So what we did, it's in Miami, we found out like it's strategically positioned in the middle between Latin America and the US. So what Manatech is doing today, we actually bought like between 75 and 80 properties in downtown Miami in order to create sort of like a tech hub, like a Silicon Valley to connect Latin America and the United States. So what we see in Latin America, it's like we see like 33 fragmented economies that they don't collaborate between each other. So we are looking forward to provide the physical infrastructure to make that connection possible and eventually connect, 1.1 billion people economy like in a single place. We see Miami as the gateway for every tech entrepreneur that is coming from Latin America, and it's a tech hub that we've been seeing this for the last, let's say, years, but now we literally invested like a lot of money in providing those spaces. So what we are doing today are 4 things, and maybe this is important for the audience because if you feel you can connect somehow with these 4 initiatives that we have, and we also call them circles, then we should talk. We provide with educational programs, acceleration programs, market entry programs. So if you're a founder and you're looking forward to kind of like connect with the, let's say, US for the first time, see how you do businesses there, how you raise capital, how you learn how to sell, then we should talk. With me, with Annie, who is also in the audience and is part of the team. But we should definitely catch up. Then we're also running events. I will be more than happy to have a volcano summit in Miami in our facilities. But if you run events, then let's definitely connect. Let's see how we bring that from Latin America to US through Miami again. We also have, ventures. We're developing and ideally starting to invest in deep tech companies from Latin America in Series A. And lastly, a very important thing, but I think it's the most important, we are providing with office spaces and co-working spaces in this neighborhood. So if you think about it, Manatech is looking to be like I like to call it like a 360-degree solution, because we're gonna be always there for you to, on how to start doing businesses. I think that's it. I just wanted to let you know, like, we are here to support you guys, not only if you're based in Guatemala, but in any other country from Latin America. We're deeply interested in talking with you. And kind of like a little story, also this holding company, which is called Mana Common, developed back in the days Winwood. So it was the same thing. We bought a bunch of land, like it was like 45 acres, and we invested in bringing people to paint the walls, to sing, to sell the clothes, to do every single thing that you see to do today in Wynwood. And that is what we are working today in downtown, and what will eventually happen, once the kind of like the community takes over and takes control of the neighborhood. Last thing, it's not that Manatech can do this thing by itself. We can't develop a neighborhood by ourselves. We need each of you, like as governments, non-governments, like venture capitals, founders, even restaurants, businesses. That's how like at the end of the day, the neighborhood belongs to everyone and not to Manatech. So I'm trying to welcome you to chat more and see how we connect. But that's what we are doing today. Thank you, Christine.
Great, thanks, Mati. Super. So I think some of the things you mentioned so important was that diversity. I mean, when you said in Wynwood, you brought the artists, you brought the restaurants, you brought the businesses, the startups. So I think having a diverse ecosystem is so important for communities to thrive. But when we asked initially, how many of you are happy or content with your community, is what we spoke before. We know it's challenging to shepherd a community through difficult times, sometimes through generations. So Christopher, since you are with Burning Man, and that's been since the 80s, I guess, since you started, and now across countries, across cultures, could you share a little bit of sort of the framework that you've used to ensure that communities really thrive beyond the current generation moving forward?
Yeah, thank you. Really nice to be here. And, the Burning Man community is, for me, like many layers of community. Many people know us for our big event, which is called Black Rock City. It is 80,000 people. But then we also have 90 events of people building communities around the world. South Africa, Argentina, Brazil, Japan. And then we're also starting to explore, our communities now have been doing these events, and so they're starting to buy their own land, and they're starting to be rooted in place. And even in our city itself, there are 1,200 sub-communities that are all running their own little communities inside of it. And so I really see us as a community of communities where there are many experiments happening inside of that space. And to me, like one moment of proving the strength of our community is, maybe you saw recently, we just had our event, there was a giant rainstorm, the news was like, oh, it's horrible, everyone's stuck. We had 74,000 people on site, 2,000 people walked out. The rest of the people stayed and said it was the best experience they've ever had because of that community. And so I think the question you're kind of asking me is, I'm just going to share a very quick framework that I've been using in how to think about how to build communities. And it has 4 pieces. So number 1 is to map your space. Whether it's physical, like what you're doing with Ecovilla, or whether what you're doing with digital, how do you create a map so people know where to go? How do I go where I need to learn something, where I need to share something, where I need to build something? Then 2, you need to figure out who your members are. If your community is everybody in the world, it's not a community, because you can't do that, right? There has to be an in and an out. There has to be a way to come in. It also has to have ways for people to leave. And so really mapping out, who am I serving? What are the ways people come in, people come out, so that I can define who I'm working with? Number 3 is cultural standards. How do our members treat one another? How do we treat people outside? Particularly when we have conflict, what do we do? What is our process? Because over time, you will have conflict in your community. And so have that set up so that people know the path to go. And then number 4 for me is programming. What are we doing together? How are we sharing that? Is it for us? Is it for others? What are the ways we are creating that together? And for me, these are the 4 legs that you can lay the table of community upon.
Excellent. And before we get knocked off, I would love to hear from each of you. How do you face that framework? Space, members, programming, and the 4th one?
Cultural standards.
Cultural standards. So how do you do that at the World Happiness Foundation?
Well, basically, our foundation is focused on more happiness, less suffering. Our goal is 10 billion happier people by 2050. So the first thing we did was to manage to get 194 countries signing one resolution at the United Nations saying that we want to celebrate happiness as a human right. So now we have one day, which is March 20th. So I think this is very important because we map our space. The space is happiness as a fundamental human right. So it's not like it's the commodity of being happy, it's I have the right to be happy. Then what we've done is, where do we want to roll this out? And we want to roll this out in cities, schools, and companies. So we created cities of happiness, enterprise of happiness, and schools of happiness. And we are going down and targeting teachers, leaders at the business level, and mayors. So those are the people that we really want to train to be happier themselves. The moment they become happier, they extend this to the communities. So we have identified 25 million people around the world that we want to be part of our community. If they expand this principle of happiness in their communities, then we get to 10 billion. So we target 25 million people who can impact 400 people each in their lifetime. That way you do the math, you get to 10 billion. So actually it's not that difficult, which is 1% of the population. So you're a teacher, you're a psychologist, you're a business leader, or you're a government official, you're part of our community. And we want to talk to you. Thank you.
And just real quick, who are your members? Who do you see as your members? What do you see as your members that are, is it curated or is it just come naturally?
Hola. Yeah. It's a self-selective process. Anyone is welcome. And we have artists, doctors, entrepreneurs, CEOs, and all walks of life, all ages, all countries. And our idea is to expand these villages all around the world with our schools as well.
And David, maybe you can talk about a little bit about standards.
Super quick. No, I think that at the end of the day, can you hold this just for a second? Thank you so much. I think that at the end of the day is what I'm thinking, like all this pre-organization that we had. At the end of the day, all of us, we are facilitators in a community. But I think that really what depends the success, it's on the community. A community needs to be led by the members. So what I encourage you is that if you are part of a community, really understand what is the purpose if you are really exploring, because to me, this is like a gym membership. It comes the 31st of December and you want to lose weight and you go very excited to the gym. And then it doesn't matter if you are not going there to train your muscle, right? You really need to go to use the equipment, the personal trainers, the installations and so on. So my invitation is much more really a community. We are facilitators, but the success depends on the community members.
So quick one around members, if you want. If you're a business owner, tech company, founder, if you belong to a governmental agency from Latin America, a non-governmental agency, venture capital, we're happy to talk with you, and that's it.
Perfect. Well,
just in time.
Do we have time? Perfect. Yes, the zero. But so thank you. What we've seen today is there's a lot of different ways to shape communities, to create what membership looks around them, what the structure looks around. And I wish we'd had more time to speak a little bit about how we resolve conflicts. But I think all of our wonderful panelists are available for more talking. And I don't know if we have time for a few questions. Maybe? I don't know who says yes or no here.
Yes.
Yes. Perfect. Any questions out there? Yes, perfect.
Yeah, when you set up culture and order key elements, have you written kind of a fixed policy? How do you share it before the event or during the event? How do you share your own policies that you have created? And was it before or during, after your first event that you wrote that?
Yeah, well, I think the tricky thing is that you also have to listen to your community, and so you can oftentimes come up with your best idea. And I would say for us at Burning Man, right, we have these 10 principles. Thank you for showing her that. And so these are kind of the cultural framework we work within, but then also with things like conflict. Those are things where we come up with the idea, we share it out before, and then we also every year revisit it and are working with our community in an iterative process.
Another question back there? No? Well, great. Well, we want to thank you all so much for coming today and sharing your stories of community. I think around the world here, I think you were recently in Bhutan, Costa Rica. Where are you off to next? Miami and Paris? Miami, Argentina. Yeah, so, let's all work on creating more communities to create a better world. So thank you very much, everyone. One more thing.
No, just the only one thing, and I go to Burning Man as well, so I'm a burner, is, is the economy of giving and gifting, right? So what I brought is a ticket for the World Happiness Festival. If you want to come in March to Miami. So this is a ticket, real ticket. So if anyone wants to come, it's a free ticket. So I have 50, okay? If anyone wants, I have it for you. So, but you have to belong to the community, okay? No, this is for free. So just come along.
We may have to do like a bridal toss. But thank you, everybody, so much
Thank you.
for coming
Thank
today.
you very much.